to another segment of our monthly broadcast. This month is Women's History Month, and we are just so excited to have the guest that we have with us today. I would like to preface that the conversation that we're going to have today, it may be triggering. So want you to be mindful of care for yourself and also just the grace uh, regarding the topic. So, the topic for our time together today is acknowledging and reconciling with racial terror. So, with that, I would like to welcome our guest, Adrienne Hershey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Adrienne. And also Elon Osby.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you, ladies. I mean, a wonderful way to do a broadcast for Women's History Month on the heels of Black History Month and being able to, show the intersection between the two. So we're going to dive right in. And you may see us either, like referencing notes because there is historical data that we're also going to be referencing in our conversation. So just want to let the audience know that. So with that, let's just get started. I pulled this from a headline. So this was October 13th, 1912, and it was in the Atlanta Constitution. The headline read, "Enraged white people are driving blacks from county." The article went on to say that recent outrages committed against white women in the county have so enraged the white people that many of them have determined to drive the Negroes, good, bad, and indifferent, from the county. The county in this instance was Forsyth County in Georgia. Black churches were set ablaze. Night riders terrorized Black sharecroppers and landowners. And there's just overall been a dark history, Forsyth County, and then other places across the country, that unfortunately, when you look at it, there is an alleged violence against a woman, and specifically a white woman. You think about Emmett Till. Also think about the Tulsa race massacre in 1921. And I just wanted to know, as two women who are joined together today, one white, one black, what is it that you're bringing to this space, and how does that make you feel?
For our specific community, and we'll get into the more details around our history, there was a white woman, young woman, that was assaulted and did die. So our history is a little different than I think some of the other contexts that you're giving, but nonetheless, still a tipping point for more violent and more kind of racial incidents to happen as a result of those things. So I think we all can agree that assault on any woman is wrong. But in this specific context, we know that there's a history and an unfortunate pattern of that being used in other ways to hurt a group of people. And so that, of course, is also wrong.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrienne. Any additional thoughts, Elon?
In addition to the alleged raping and murder of May Crow, prior to that, a few days, I believe, to that incident, there was another white woman who claimed that she had been raped by a Negro man. And it turned out that she was actually having a consensual affair with this guy. But when she was caught or almost caught, then, the coin was flipped and it's something else. And there have been several incidences of that where it was consensual up until the time, that you're being found out. And I think that it is, it was an awful thing then. And tying it into the Me Too movement now, I kind of feel the same way about some of those reports that we are hearing about now. Not to take anything away from people who have actually been violated then or now, but I feel that, as Adrienne said, that sometimes it's used for other means other than actually being justified for what actually happened to you.
And as I noted, there was this racial cleansing that happened in 1912 in Forsyth County. Miss Elon Osby is a descendant of one of the families that were driven out of the county. And I would just like to give you the opportunity, Miss Osby, to just share, like, what were some of the things that you heard from your predecessors about what took place then?
When I was about 30, 31, and my mother was being interviewed about the 1912 incidents. And that's when I found out about the rape and everything. And from what she told me, they were that a lot of families were being burned out. There were night riders, as they call them, I've learned now, and they would ride through the Negro neighborhoods, and they were threatening people, they were killing people, they were burning their homes and everything. And as I was told, my grandfather and my grandmother, I'm sorry, they gathered what they could and getting the family together and everything that they could get on a wagon. That was all the transportation that they had. And they had to leave with just whatever belongings. The number one priority was for my grandfather to get his family, his wife and his children onto this wagon. But then whatever few belongings that you could gather, that's what they did. And made the exodus out of Forsyth County. And my mother was only 2 years old when this happened, but the fear and just what they had to go through for the sake of their lives was transferred down, to her and her siblings, in the stories that they told about this.
And, like you said, the fear, right, that was passed down. It was passed down. That's generational trauma, right? And Adrienne, when you came to learn about this, you were a transplant to the area, right? Like, you were in the area, you came for work, new opportunity, and there were people that kind of said, ooh, Forsyth County, I don't know if you want to live there, right? Even Oprah did an episode in 1987 where she was delving into the racist past and history of the county. How did you go about learning more about the history, and how did you feel navigating the space as an outsider?
I lived in the area for about 17 years. Like you said, I moved here for a job. Forsyth County is part of Metro Atlanta. It's about 45 minutes north of downtown, just for reference for those who may not be aware of this area. And moved with my company, and several coworkers said, "Oh, it's a great place to live. The taxes are cheaper." And so we took that advice, and then as we lived here for a while and worked closer into the city, as you said, had conversations with people about some of the history of Forsyth, and slowly kind of put the pieces together of that difficult history, and there was eventually some additional information than just sort of word of mouth. There have been some books written about the history of the county. One is called Blood at the Root. The other one is called Hidden in the Bitter Waters. And there's also been there's also been a few documentaries as well about the history. So just trying to educate myself on that history versus just some hearsay. Because like you said, the more recent events that people can point to are some marches that happened in the 80s, and then subsequently Oprah coming and interviewing people, which is before I lived here, not knowing that until I already had moved to the area. And realizing that, I don't want people to think of me as having certain beliefs because of where I live. And also, this community has changed so much in the last 20 years as being brought into kind of metro Atlanta area. There is a lot of transplants here. The community has grown. It's one of the fastest growing counties in the country for the last several years. So there is a lot of people moving in, but also as we look at understanding, educating ourselves about this past, also trying to get different perspectives, and also understanding the sensitivity of people that are from here generationally, that they know the history as well, but they have, their own perspective. But I think there's a lot of, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, a lot of like, so what do we do? Because we know the history, we know this past, but we feel like sort of stuck in that there aren't things that we can do to move forward versus just saying, yes, it was wrong, and we're not sure where to go from there.
Thank you. So, Adrienne took it upon herself to do independent research, right? And then along the way, Adrienne, you got connected with others in the area who wanted to do something about, just this new information, new for you, but not necessarily like in history. I just want to be clear about that.
Right.
And you were able to get connected to descendants who were a part of this racial cleansing that took place in Forsyth County, Miss Osby included. How did that come about? And what, if you can kind of reflect on what were some of the most profound things that you heard from some of the descendants?
Mm-hmm. That I now work at a local church in the community and do community outreach and connecting with the community. And so this is a piece of our community's history, and talking with other churches and in different settings and different community groups that churches get together and saying, what does this look like for us as the local churches to do something and address this history. But also, as we know more, we also want to include the people that were affected by these events, and not just say, well, we feel like this would be honoring to the families, but not include the families in the conversation. And so we connected with one of the authors that I had mentioned. His name is Patrick Phillips. He's the one who wrote Blood at the Root, and he had done several interviews for his book and connected us with Miss Elon. And a few other folks as well as just, I don't think I realized that as we got to connect with more descendants, other people realized just how close some of these families still are to this community. There are several families that are still in adjacent counties to us that are maybe 20, 30 minutes down the road that their families resettled in, that we've been able to connect with. And so being able to just have conversations, that Miss Elon was open to talking with me and some other folks about, what is your experience? What would be honoring to your families? There's been some other activities in the community through the Community Remembrance Project, through the EJI, to put up a plaque in our town square to acknowledge these historical events and what happened. And Miss Elon has been a part of that, as well as some other descendants. And so really just having conversations, getting to know each other, building relationships, and discussing, what are some things that would be helpful. And that's where, I know we'll talk a little bit more about this, but that's where the scholarship idea came about, that the community could participate in. And so as a part of that too, I think it's not just having conversations, but really getting to know people. And I feel like specifically with Elon that we built a friendship, kind of an unlikely friendship based on, these, horrible history that we share. But it's been a blessing to me to get to know her and her family, and to just build a bond that I was pleasantly surprised was really easy. We seem to have a really easy friendship, and she's a wonderful person. And as we've talked and met, I think it just becomes even clearer to me that we lost a lot of things through this event, and one of many is these 1,100 people that were forced out. That Elon should be my neighbor. She should live down the street from me. She should already have known my children. We should have already been friends. She should have already been contributing to our community, because she has such an amazing personal story in herself that we missed out on that. And that's just one example of so many people that that we've missed out on in this community.
Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you. And then, like another thing that's missed out, right? Like even from that history is just kind of the generational flourishing, right? Because you even mentioned that there are families that are like 20, 30 minutes out. Miss Osby, I even know that your family, right? They owned land. They owned land. And with just this this removal, right? There's things that are lost that then impact systems. So I wanted to pull this quote. Guy P. Harrison, he wrote this article December 2020 entitled "Why White America Must Learn the History of Lynching." And a part of it, I quote, "Lynchings in the past have significantly shaped race relations in the present. A killing such as George Floyd's lands on Black people with a much heavier psychological weight because of lynching's legacy. Too many white people fail to recognize this, and that needs to change. The hurt is too great, the simmering fear and anger too volatile to bury forever. All Americans who would seek or demand a nation that is fairer to every citizen, less racist, and more peaceful have a responsibility to know this history in detail. Confronting this ugliness," he goes on, "would be difficult for everyone, of course, but it should be attempted. Ignorance and denial certainly have not worked, because this American wound still bleeds. This wound still bleeds."
Yes.
And it's interwoven in various systems that we see today, whether it's the carceral system, economics, housing. What are your thoughts on this wound that still bleeds, and the role of the church, I might add, in reckoning and reconciling with it?
I agree that it still bleeds, and in on a lot of different levels. And for me, I have I don't have any sons. I have adopted sons that I worry about as though I was their mother. But for me directly, it's my grandsons. Um, my oldest one is a freshman in college at Albany State. And two things that I have had to worry about him: when my daughter told me that he was starting to drive, I had anxiety about it. I just did not want him to drive. I said, I can come and pick him up and take him where he wants to go, and those kind of things. He is next year going to take his car to school, and um, coming through these small towns between Atlanta and Albany, Georgia, it worries me. It really does. And I try my best just to rely on my faith in God and just trusting that, my grandson is wrapped in his protection. Um, they recently had threats on campus. Albany State was one of them. And you know that this is probably just a fear tactic, but then you don't know for sure, given the environment that has been created over the previous past 4 years. You're not sure that it's just, a tactic to cause fear and confusion and whatever. And so, those sort of things are on my heart. It's a burden that you have to live with, and not just my grandchildren, but every child, every Black male child, or even nowadays female children, young people, period, Black young people, period. Um, all of the ones that you see them and you're just concerned, and you say a quick prayer: God, just protect them today. Let them live to tomorrow. And so that's the bleeding, in my opinion. That some of these things that happened 100 years ago, they're still happening. They may have taken on a different format, but it's still the same. It's still the same. So it hurts. It
Mhm.
hurts, and it
Mm,
does bleed.
mm. Adrienne?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's understanding that context, understanding others' perspectives, right? As Christians, we want to treat others how we would like to be treated, but we also don't understand the context that other people live in sometimes. So we need to be open to different perspectives that will be different than mine, because I live a different life. I have different parents, different a different upbringing, all the things that go into having different perspectives, but specifically with race, just trying to understand that context. The Center for Civil and Human Rights is in Atlanta, and for an example, my team went there to learn more, and after touring, I just had this overwhelming sense of, what do I do with this? And one of my sweet friends said, you need to start educating yourself more. You need to learn. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. We're not experts, but there are plenty of books out there. There is plenty of information to learn more. And so when we specifically talk about the history of lynching, the Equal Justice Initiative comes to mind, of, all the work they've done to bring more awareness around that. Not that it, happened long ago, but that it is not very long ago. And there are other, forms and concerns that people have that may be different than that, but still occur today. And so, I think just understanding those things is not, some people might see them as isolated incidents, but to others, those are patterns. And so we need to look at those patterns to see how we change them. And I think the starting point for a lot of people that aren't aware is education and awareness, from where I sit.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. And for those, as Ms. Osby shared about her grandson, right, Albany State. So as of early February, there were at least 14 historically Black colleges and universities that received bomb threats. And, she even mentioned it still hurts, right? It shows up in a different form today, but it is triggering. It is triggering from things in the past, because you don't know what shape it's going to take.
Yes.
You don't know the extent of the threat and the violence. It is still an act of violence, even with the threat. And as Adrienne said, starting with education, sometimes, people can just get in the place of education and just stay there, right? But one thing I appreciate, and why, you two ladies are here with us, is because even as both are still learning more about each other, learning more about the community, learning more about the history, you have moved to action in concert with descendants, in concert with people in the area. And I just wanted to pull a quote from one of the action steps that you all have taken with the scholarship. It says, in recognition of the injustices done to Black residents of Forsyth County, Georgia, in 1912 and afterward, we as followers of Jesus would like to honor those expelled from the county by providing college scholarships to some of their descendants. Adrienne, as you kind of alluded to, you along with a team of other leaders at approximately like 10 churches, right? And a ministerial alliance chose to take action. For those that are curious and like chomping at the bit of what that was like, can you just share more around like how did you mobilize and just begin to take action to reconcile with the past?
Yes. Well, it's definitely not an overnight process. And lots of starts and stops. COVID didn't help things go faster by any means, but it really started with a lot of conversations. In our community, we have something called a ministerial alliance, where many local churches get together and talk about things that are going on in the community, ways that we can support each other. There's some pastors roundtables that support pastors together in the community, and they can connect as pastors. And so just having those conversations of what does it look like to honor these families and acknowledge this history, and how can we work together to do that? And what a beautiful thing if this could be a community initiative, not just one group or one person trying to make something happen. It is stronger and I think more meaningful coming from the broader community. And so it was, again, really a lot of conversations, and to see who was interested and who was open to kind of bringing some more of this history out of the darkness and into the light, because it can be really difficult to talk about. But what does that look like to just say, this is hard and this is really uncomfortable, but we need to talk about it. And so let's just talk about it. And it's not going to be one conversation. It's not going to be one day, but it's going to be lots of conversations over lots of days and weeks and months, and really has been several years to find out, for instance, find descendants. Elon and I want to talk a little bit about that to make sure that they were included in the conversation. But because there's no like database that says, so these are all the families 100 years later and where they are. And so really word of mouth, some of these authors, friends of friends, and then it expands from there. And even some genealogical research as well that some groups have been helping us do. And really saying, well, what's helpful? What is something that is tangible that people can get behind, that can be a part of? We can all say, oh, we feel really bad about what happened and we know that was wrong. And we don't, of course, would never want to repeat that again in our community or anywhere. But what's something that people could be a part of? And really the scholarship kind of bubbled to the surface, that people can opt in to give to it. And we have a statement of support that people can sign that to say that they think that this is a good idea and they want to be a part of it. We have several pastors that are on our website that have signed that statement of support, as well as community individuals and some organizations and nonprofits, and really give these scholarships. So as you talked about some of this generational wealth that was lost, we know that this is not enough. We know that this doesn't fix anything, but we also know that this is a step at acknowledging that history and honoring these families and saying we do care and we care about you. And as Christians, we should be putting our love into action, as it says in James. And so that's really where this came up with. And the scholarships are, we feel like are pretty significant. They're $10,000 per year for up to 4 years. And talking to some different scholarship organizations about what would be significant, what would actually help someone go to school that may not be able to otherwise, or have some exorbitant loans. 10,000 was the number that that made the most sense to be significant, to really help someone go to school, or alleviate some of that financial burden. So that's where we are at today, is kicking off this scholarship about a month ago, and moving forward with it, and it's going really well. We're really excited about it.
Thank you. And I commend you for the effort, right? Because I'm quite sure even Miss Osby, right? Like, when the tragedy happened, your family, along with others, were impacted by it. Your family probably would have never even thought that an act of love like this would even come of that tragedy, and of that violence and that terror. And Adrienne, I also appreciate you acknowledged, right, that this is work. It's not a one-stop shop, one day and done, right? It took time to learn, to listen, to learn some more, unlearn things as well, and patience, because this is a volunteer effort, right? And we know that there may be some capacity constraints that other churches may have, and adjustments that have come about during the pandemic. Yet, I commend you both. Even those that are not even a part of this broadcast right now, right? Like, just thank you all for your time, your effort. To even recall things from the past is not easy. It is triggering. It is triggering. So just thank you. Thank you. I wanted to kind of transition a bit into, and actually, Adrienne, for those that want to know how to support, right? How could they go about doing it and learning more about the scholarship?
Yes, we have a website. So you can go to forsythscholarship.com, and Forsyth is FORSYTH. I have to make sure I get all the syllables in there. We, of course, would love donations if people are interested in that. We have a partners page, as I mentioned, that you can find on the website if you want to sign the statement of support. And also, we never know who's watching these. And so if you think you're a descendant, if you know someone that has talked about this story before that might think they might be a descendant, we would love to talk to them. And so there's a spot on the website that they can contact us. We also know that we want to confirm that these families are actually descendants, so that the scholarships go to the right people. And so, but we also don't want that to be a burden. And so we have some folks that have also volunteered to help people fill in the gaps. If they think they're descendant, they know who their parents are and their grandparents, but maybe not their great grandparents. So we have some folks that are here to help you fill in those gaps as well. So don't let that be a deterrent if you may not have all that information.
So thank you for that, Adrienne. Miss Osby, do you have anything to add, just with regards to the reconciliation and just like the process that the church and as well as the community has rallied around for the scholarship?
I am so thankful for the organization that started this scholarship for a lot of reasons. But I think that this is the second step toward acknowledgement of what happened. The first step being the unveiling and dedication of the marker, which actually states that there were lives lost here, there was property that was lost. And so this scholarship is a huge step toward acknowledgement and reconciliation, and to say, we're sorry for what happened. This is one thing that we can do. and we're going to do it. And I think in terms of this being a step in the direction of addressing generational wealth, I think that the first step toward wealth, whatever a person thinks that is education. And so for them to choose this to be the avenue they want to take, to reconcile what happened, I think it's beautiful. The fact that this is a faith-based organization, just that in itself is going to draw people. And so I'm just thankful to them, thankful for this. I hope that people will, who hear this, I hope that they will support it. I hope they will let us know who they are and where they are so that we can, get more descendants to come and join us in this effort, and add their contribution toward just being a part of this movement. I think it's evolving into that. But I'm thankful for what you all are doing for this program. We certainly appreciate it, and I hope that some people who want to support the scholarship and some descendants will come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And, to sustain an effort such as this, like you said, Adrienne, it's taken years, right? And I'm quite sure, just as I and the team were inspired and are inspired by the work that you all have, engaged in and that's underway with the scholarship. What are some things that if someone was interested, another local community was interested, local churches were interested in embarking on a similar journey, what would you advise that they do first? And also some consideration for sustaining that energy and that momentum.
So I would say our biggest learning is sort of a listening tour, if that's the right term, that it doesn't start with action. It starts with listening and learning and, educating yourself about your community's history, and then also understanding the perspectives from all the different, I'll call them stakeholders. But, we talk to people in our local community of all different backgrounds, local leaders, because this is a sensitive topic for our community, because we don't want to be known for that history. We want to be known for all the great things that our community is today. But I think also addressing that history makes this community a better place, because we want everyone to feel welcome here. And with that history, that is not the case all the time. And so part of that, again, is acknowledging and addressing that history, but then I'm trying to say through that sensitivity or that discomfort in the conversation, we still want all those different perspectives. And so we invited people that have lived here for generations to be a part of the conversation. We've invited local leaders to give their input. And obviously we've talked a lot about talking with descendants and really trying to get buy-in from, a large group in the community to say, this is important, this is worth doing, and there is support. And so I really think that is the great place to start, is really kind of doing your homework and listening to all those voices before you decide this is what we're going to do, because it might not be helpful, and that might not be honoring, or it might not, be the best fit for those involved. And so let's make sure it might not always be a scholarship. It might be something else. And I think Elon said it well, that we know that there was loss and generational loss, whether that was, land, livelihood, family, community, your local church. Like you're just putting yourself in their shoes to say, what would that have been like, and having compassion for that. But really, to answer your main question of, I think that's really the first step. And then find out where those champions are to help you sustain the effort in the long term. Because it can be discouraging, because you want to do something and you wish it was faster. But I think as, we have these conversations, we know that unfortunately this work is not quick. or else it wouldn't be done by now. And we would all be, we wouldn't be having to have this conversation. So that encourages you when there's other champions and other people that are excited about this work, and meeting wonderful people that I wouldn't have otherwise met, like Miss Elon, that we've gotten to be friends, and it's just a huge blessing. She's a huge blessing in my life, and I hope that I am a little bit of a blessing in hers. And so there's a lot of wonderful things that have come out of this that keep you moving forward.
I love it. I love it. Listening, the intentional listening, right? And then also knowing that this is not a swift process. And letting the community inform what that thing is going to be versus projecting on the community what the solution should be, reconciling with that past. So, ladies, again, Women's History Month. I would like for us to close and wrap up. Are there any women in history, right, or even present day, that keep you inspired as you work towards building bridges towards racial equity?
I think there's a lot of historical figures that inspire you that have kind of overcome situations, but what comes to mind for me is really being plugged in with people that have different perspectives than me. A lot of those are women. I'm in a racial reconciliation small group that I've been in for several years, that I've gotten to know people from all different backgrounds, to really have frank conversations and really understand different perspectives. That has so helped me in this work. And even to the extent of also being in groups with people of different faiths, to say, gosh, you may believe some different things than I do, but there are some commonalities in our lives and our common humanity that help bring us together, but also enrich our lives to see those different perspectives. And so I think intentionally looking for those opportunities, and to connect with people of different backgrounds, to really better understand and obviously become friends through that, those opportunities as well. But really, they inspire me to do more, and to be better, and to learn more, and to use my voice where I can, in the spheres that I have some influence in, and that's been very meaningful for me.
Thank you, Adrienne. Miss Osby?
There are two people that I think of being asked that question. One is my mother. She was 2 years old, as I said earlier, when they came out of Forsyth County. But my mother went through an era, as they referred to it, as Jim Crow area. I didn't even know that we were going through this. My mother did, and there was nothing different. I admire the way she did. She didn't complain about anything. You knew your place. You knew where you could go, what you could do, different things like that. But there were never any complaints about the racial injustices that were going on. And my mother went through a lot of different stages in her life. She and my father, they had a business in Atlanta, in Buckhead, but then they went to work for a couple of white families, as the cook and the butler. And then my mother had the first Black licensed daycare in Georgia. And so there were all of these different stages in her life. And I admire her, but I tell you, somebody now who inspires me, and she doesn't know this. I'm not saying this because we're in this interview, but she does. And that's Adrienne. Adrienne is just an unbelievable woman. And I think of her and her husband and her daughters as family. I told her that earlier. I was talking about her the other day with somebody, and I said, I just love her and her family, but she inspires me because I know that young mothers and wives and people who have jobs, they have a lot to do. I don't know where the energy comes from her to take on something like this. And so she inspires me. The times when I don't want to do anything but sit on the sofa and watch Law and Order. I think sometimes, Adrienne is doing these things, and you don't actually speak it out, but it's on your mind, and I just think about her and the energy that she has and the love for people that she has. And in God, she is expressing this love. And so she is an inspiration to me just to do more and to be better. I just think she is a beautiful person. And Imani, you don't know her. Take my word for it. She is just a beautiful soul.
Well, you cheated. I was going to say you, but I didn't think we were supposed to.
I knew this was eventually going to be a love fest. I just waited for it.
And I'll tell you something, Imani. I'll tell you this. When I first got the email, and Patrick Phillips, he connects me with a lot of people, in this arena about this situation. And when I first got the email, and she and I did a little interview, and I'm usually a really good judge of character, but I was wrong on this one because I just thought, she just wants to, hear what I have to say. And, she's working on some project or whatever. And I thought, that's the end of it. After this interview, we did a Zoom interview, and just not knowing what would come out of that initial email, that Patrick made happen. And I owe Patrick a thank you. And here we are in the friendship and the family now. It just continues to grow, and we get closer. And I'm at this point in my life, I'm just so thankful of that. I'm thankful to be close to somebody young, because that in itself, is an inspiration, to see, those viewpoints and to see that energy and whatever. So I'm just really thankful that it happened. I really am.
Wow. Thank you. Miss Osby, again, thank you, Adrienne, just for your time. I found myself trying to not cry, from the Love Fest, but this is just so beautiful. The intergenerational connection, the cross-racial work that has started and will continue. And just the heart of God that is just evident in this work to help sustain this effort. And I really just hope that others are just as inspired as I am and the team is, to just showcase this, the work that is going on in Forsyth. And again, for those that want to learn more about the history and how to support, it's forsythscholarship.org, forsythscholarship.org. So again, to sustain in this work, it's not easy. It takes a lot of listening, a lot of patience, and just the work of reconciliation. It is going to make us uncomfortable. And that uncomfortability is where we know that change happens. So thank you all for tuning in, and let's turn that awareness and that love into action. Thank you.